So, welcome back to Technologies Now, the business edge. And this is a broker's perspective where we sit down with real estate professionals and entrepreneurs who are actually building businesses, not just talking about them. Today, I'm joined with Reid Schwartz with eXp Realty, serving Skagit and Whidbey Island markets in Washington. Reid is one of those backgrounds that really shapes how he does business, from serving in the U.S. Navy to entrepreneurship to building a relationship first real estate practice in a very unique market. Reid, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks, David. Good to be here. Good to be here. I'm excited to do this.
Excellent, excellent. Well, let's do this. As always, I like to start from the beginning. I would love to hear your story about how you got into real estate, or maybe let's go back. I mean, it all leads to now, certainly, but military service, entrepreneurship, real estate. Walk us through your journey.
Yeah. So I grew up in Southern California, and I went in the Navy when I was 17, and that kind of got me started in the whole technology thing because the Navy doesn't always let you pick what you want to be. They call it a dream sheet. You dream about what you want, and then they tell you what you're going to do. But I ended up being an anti-submarine warfare operator, air crew on P3s, which granted we used what we thought were state-of-the-art computers back then, but they took up whole rooms. But so I was working with a lot of technology, tracking submarines back in the early 80s.
Wow. Interesting.
And that kind of got me started on that path. I had a job after I was in the Navy Reserves for 9 years. And then I had my job work for the city of Los Angeles, another place where I worked with a lot of technology. But I guess I was just born with the entrepreneurial spirit. My grandfather owned his own business. And always, until I became just an entrepreneur, I was always had a job and had a side business, from mowing lawns to video production to website design. And then I eventually ended up in a pizzeria.
All right.
So we moved from California to Washington in 95. And at that time, I had a video production business so that I was doing as a side gig, moved up here, brought that with me, ended up in another career working in heavy industry, actually spent about 15, 16 years traveling all over the United States and some international stuff. And interestingly, and what's going on in our current market, I actually spent 2 trips to Venezuela back then, which was quite interesting. And with what's going on in the news now, it's an interesting perspective. But I've always been the computer guy. I've always been I was doing video production, everybody now is thinking they do everything with your phone. I was doing it on VHS, big ass camcorder, and editing with 3 VCRs, and probably had more money invested in the computer system back then with a Pentium 100 in it which my phone will do far more than that ever did.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Your palm of your hand.
Yeah. So when I moved to Washington, my dad lived here in Washington, and I lived on Whidbey Island, which is a pretty good size island. I mean, it's 45 miles long, 60,000 people in 6 different communities, big Navy base there. My dad lived on the next island out in the Puget Sound, which you only get, Whidbey Island has a bridge to it and a couple ferries. The island he lived on, you only get to by ferry boat or private boat or airplane. And he had a real estate brokerage out there. So when I moved up here, that was my exposure to getting into real estate. So he ran that office. And when I moved up here, I kind of became his technology guy and his marketing guy. I actually built their MLS. This was in the early 90s. And actually I started before I moved up here. Yeah. The island was so small. It was only 2,000 people. There was no MLS. He owned the oldest real estate brokerage on the island. So he had the biggest database of anybody, but it was in Microsoft DOS.
How do you find anything in there? I have no idea.
So you got to know that to type. Yeah. So I converted it into Microsoft Access. So at least it was, you could use a mouse and a Windows interface to access it. And I built his website, did video, actually we all use Matterport nowadays for the 3D tours of houses and stuff. I actually built a version of that in like 1998. Using still camera, digital camera, film cameras, and then scanning the pictures, and JavaScript to create a DVD and a website where you could literally walk around and look in 360 degrees. One of those many things you look back in hindsight and go, I should have followed up on that.
Oh my gosh. Did you say 1998?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that
That
was,
seems unheard of at that point.
yeah, yeah, and that was it was on like a what was 1998 a $3 million waterfront listing. So it was a market for it, but, yeah, yeah, hindsight, you go, "Hey, I should have done more with that." Had a couple of those moments in my life.
Yeah. Well, you never really know, right? Until you get down the road if it's
Absolutely, hindsight is definitely 2020.
yeah, well, if we had hindsight on everything, we would have Bitcoin, bought Bitcoin right when it came out. Let's see, there's so many things, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And we
Yeah,
still think Bitcoin's going to be, or some people think Bitcoin will be, $1 million at some point, $100,000, $1 million eventually, because there's no necessarily a ceiling to it. So I don't know. Maybe it's just the same now. We should buy Bitcoin. And I'm not
we
advising anybody that you should buy Bitcoin, just for the record here.
yeah,
Invest at your own risk.
this is just for entertainment.
Yes, entertainment purposes only. Thank you very much. Unless you can need to get a hold of
Abs
Reid and he'd be professional in his space. Yes.
Yes. So I was involved in real estate from that perspective. I did his newsletter. I did all of his marketing stuff back then, and for a long time. And the whole time I had a regular job. I traveled for my job, and I finally got tired of traveling and being away from home. I was pretty much on the road 7 or 8 months out of the year,
Oh,
and
that's
came
fun.
home. And I ended up getting into. So my job when I traveled was I was a paid pyromaniac. I was a combustion technician. My job was to heat up industrial furnaces, like where they, steel mills and aluminum plants and glass furnaces. The linings of these furnaces are made out of refractory, and you have to get all the moisture out of it. And if you just so basically, I would carry these huge, gigantic portable burners and heated them up to most of them were like 1,500, 2,000 degrees. And yeah, so then I got out of that line of work and came home and decided to stay local. Apparently, it was just in my blood, and I've always loved making pizza. Buddy and I decided we were going to build a wood-fired pizza oven on a trailer and take it to the farmer's market. So we bought this little trailer and we designed this pizza oven and we poured it. And you got to cure it. So I was able to borrow some equipment from my previous employer to cure the refractory so I could make this pizza oven. And we took it to the farmer's market in this little trailer and said, well, I'll see how this goes. It was just like after work, go to the farmer's market. And we sold 100 pizzas in 3 hours on our first time at the farmer's market. And
Oh
I was
my
like,
gosh.
that's what we said. Oh my gosh.
That's impressive.
So the next year so we did that all summer. And the next year I decided to go all in. So I took a 20-foot flatbed trailer and put a 4,000-pound wood fired pizza oven on it that I built in my driveway. And yeah, so we did that. And then that turned into, and through that, everybody uses Square nowadays, right? So this is in 2009. So Square was out then, but they didn't have their own cash registers and everything. So I actually had a thing with an iPad, and on Etsy I had an oak cash register. Somebody signed it would hold your iPad, little cash drawer, but it was
Oh,
made out of oak. It was yeah. So we did that, and then that turned into opening an actual pizza restaurant. And we did that for a couple of years, and that really enlightened me to some of the things I'm doing now. Was when I had the restaurant, we had 2 wood-fired pizza trailers and a restaurant. But some points I had 25 employees, and I can just say that it's something I never, ever, ever. After I closed the restaurant, I never want to have employees again. The payroll and the headaches and all
right.
of that. So long story short, so we closed the restaurant, and literally that week, my personal realtor where I lived called me up and said, "Hey, so when you getting your real estate license?"
Uh, just like that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I built his website also and helped him with some marketing stuff. He's like, "When you getting your license?" I'm like, "That's a great idea. I should probably think about that."
Well, it
So
sounds like you
eventually, that is what I did, and I've been doing real estate for 8 years now, and it's been fantastic. I've absolutely loved it. Learned a ton, but kind of all of the stuff, you go through life and you do these different things, and they kind of come full circle. Like the pizza business
right.
was kind of a bunch of things I'd done came together and made that work really great. And when I got into real estate, I had done video before, so doing video for real estate's important. And I've done a lot of social media, done a lot of the marketing stuff, but it can be all encompassing. When you get into real estate, even though I was exposed to my dad's business, there's so many aspects to being a realtor that, most people, and in fact, I had a conversation yesterday with somebody who was like, "Oh yeah, I'm thinking about getting my real estate license." I'm like, okay, it's, there's a lot more to it than you think. People think, "Oh yeah, get your license. It'll be easy." That's what they say. There's a lot of
Who says
work.
that? No one should say that at all. They
You
should not
you're
say
you wear so many hats as a real estate agent. What other business does the one person, do their accounting and do their marketing and do their sales? And every aspect in real estate, we tend to be, this one man show, and everybody, you think you can do everything. And you can do that to a level, but I found myself back working. So when I had that job where I traveled, my regular work week was like 86 hours a week. So I found myself back working these insane hours, out showing houses all day, and then come home and doing paperwork. And, at 11 o'clock at night, I'm still editing video. And my wife's going, "I'm going to bed."
Yeah, right. Hope to see you sometime in the next week.
Right, right. And then she worked with me. She's an agent also, but she just, there's just so many things you're doing. And I always felt like I needed somebody out there, but I went back to having a pizzeria. I'm like, I am not hiring an employee. I will
Uh,
not have somebody that's going to work for me. So I did get a transaction coordinator, but they were a contractor. So that was easy. And that took a lot of load off. And
nice.
then I started to hear about virtual assistants. Did a lot of reading, you get on the internet, on YouTube, watch videos and stuff. And said, okay, I'm going to try this. So I decided there's a website called onlinejobs.ph. A lot of people use. It's basically a job bulletin board in the Philippines. And so you post your job, and people apply for it.
Right.
So
It's
I
like
did that.
Upwork or Fiverr. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Upwork and Fiverr, well, they can all be, Upwork and Fiverr, they're working third party. You hire somebody, but they're the middleman. They take a cut of it.
Yeah.
With onlinejobs.ph, the people work directly for you, but you still got to go through the whole interviewing process. You got to filter them out. So I put this job, I spent a fair amount of time making sure I've hired a lot of people in my life. I put together a pretty good, job requirement, what I was looking for. Like 2 days later, I had like 65 applications from people
Yeah.
and resumes, and I start reading through them. Most of them had nothing to do with what I've asked for. They're just, blanketing everybody that posts a
Right.
job. Here's my resume. And I went through 20 or so of those, and I just went, I'm not doing this. I'm going to spend the next month and a half trying to figure this out. And so I just turned the ad off, said never mind, and put it on the back burner. But it took me about a year and a half later, and I was actually found another route and where I'm going now, and was able to hire my first virtual assistant, and with a system in place, and to hire them, to bring them, onboard them, to have because when you're doing this, you've never done this before. You're kind of like, okay, how do I make sure they're doing the work? Are they actually working when I want them to work?
Yeah,
How do
right.
I
Yes.
communicate with them? How do I, putting together SOPs is a lot of work. There's a lot of, there's just once again, you're back into a whole bunch of moving parts.
Right.
But I came
Yes,
up
you are.
with a system that gave me all of that. So I hired my first virtual assistant to be my social media manager because I was spending too much time doing that. I mean, on top of everything else, I have had ADHD all of my life. So you get that, shiny object syndrome, okay, I'm going to run ads like this. I'm going to make a video like that.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, I didn't make those follow-up calls with the clients, and some they went to somebody else. So you're just constantly juggling all those different things. And so once I hired Hannah, she actually put together an entire marketing plan. For the first 2 weeks she worked for me, she was while building, we did like a 2-hour interview of just talking about how I work.
Oh,
In fact,
yes.
I actually created like an hour-long video that was just me talking about myself, what I do, how I work, what the issues are, what I need fixed in my business. So she had a reference to go back to of what she's trying to solve for me. So she spent that first 2 weeks building out the next month's marketing plan for all the different social media, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. I have a business Facebook. I have a personal Facebook. On top
Yeah, a
of
lot of
that,
places.
I'm the PR guy for 2 different nonprofits, so I kind of dumped that in their lap too. And
You needed help for sure. Yes.
yeah, yeah, and while she's doing that, I'm still sending her videos going, here, put some captions on that. Here, edit this, you know. So at the end of that 2 weeks, the first of the next month, we sat down, spent like 2.5 hours as she went through this entire plan. And at the end of the first 30 days she worked for me, the one stat that always sticks in my mind, my Instagram reach went up 1,500%.
Oh my gosh. All right. This is gonna
So
pay for itself for sure. Yes.
absolutely, absolutely. And that's, and she just has continued to do that. And then um probably 6 months later, I came to the realization that you're actually for me, a social media manager was absolutely who I needed, but for most people, you really need somebody that's an a personal assistant or executive assistant first. And I'm not sure. I mean, I went backwards and it worked out for me well, but a lot of people I know, and I interview a lot of people. I have a podcast also where I interview people about that. And most people start with an executive assistant because they can take all of the stuff. I mean, I don't know. How many emails do you get?
Oh, there's yeah, plenty of emails to have to just sort through. How do you prioritize?
And that's one of the things my executive assistant does every morning is go through, and I actually have some AI that I use on my email also, but then she goes through everything and unsubscribes me from all the crap and replies to the stuff that there's a whole bunch of stuff that I don't need to answer to. She can answer
Right.
it.
Yep.
And I have a folder that's like, it's called Reads 10. And if there's 10 emails, and there's rarely that many that I actually have to personally deal with every day. And then and then she takes care of the rest of it. And that
Read
is,
reads 10. That's a great
yep.
way to do it. Yes.
Yeah. And then, yeah. Yeah. And it's that alone has been pretty close to worth her wages alone.
Yes.
And she's taken off so many things. And, in real estate, as a I do mostly residential real estate. And so a huge part of your marketing, I mean, there's two parts of your marketing, keeping your existing database, your clients happy so they come do business with you again. When I had a pizza restaurant, we had a birthday plan cards, everybody was a sign up and you get on our system. We mail you a postcard for your birthday. Come in and get a free pizza for your birthday because it's way more cost effective. You get way more return on your investment to get somebody who already likes you to do business with you again than it is to
And
get somebody who's never heard of you to say, "Hey, I want to come do business with you." I mean,
yeah,
that's just basic sales.
yeah, sales marketing 101 right there.
Absolutely. So, in real estate, depends on which book you're reading there. You have a 36 touch plan or a 45 touch plan, but you're supposed to, you want to reach out and touch your clients on a regular basis so they remember who you are because every single human being knows 5 or 10 real estate agents. You want to make sure that when their neighbor says, "Hey, we're going to move," that you're the person they think of.
Yeah, top of mind.
So I have I send birthday cards to everybody, I do, birthday posts, I do a print newsletter quarterly, I do an email newsletter weekly. All of that stuff was very hit and miss before. Some of it was automated, some of it was my email newsletter was biweekly for a while, then it was monthly for a while, then it was every week for a while. Since I hired Jelly, it's been every single Wednesday without fail.
Nice. No, that makes perfect sense. Consistency is the key to all this. It's hard to be consistent when you're wearing all the other hats.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So there's just so many, there's so many hats to wear as a real estate agent, and that lets me concentrate on being a real estate agent, not being the
Yes.
marketing expert and remember whose birthday is coming up and all that. That's all, I mean, Facebook tells you whose birthday it is, but Facebook doesn't tell you in time to mail the birthday card a week ahead of
It does
time.
not. Enough to say happy birthday, an emoji or, gift or something. That's gonna be about it. Reed, so thank you for talking about your journey. Tell us why someone should work with Reid Schwartz when they're looking for their next house or to sell or to, move up, move down.
Because I go above and beyond what most agents do. And because I have this team I've built, we have systems in place because selling real estate, I will not tell anybody that I've invented anything. Millions of houses sell every year. It's not rocket science, but there's a system in place. And if you don't have the system, and I know from experience, a lot of people don't have systems. I
Yes.
also answer my phone, which I found is not as common as you would like to think.
Not as common as it used to be.
Yeah. I don't answer it after about 8 o'clock at night, but other than that, I answer my phone 7 days a week. And, yeah, and I built a team, and we have systems to get everything done, to get, houses prepared to go on the market, to get them presented properly, to get them marketed accurately, use AI, and, we use video extensively, target marketing, working with buyers. Same thing. I go after properties that are off the market. There's there's properties that show up on the MLS, and there's other properties that are not on the MLS that we know through our marketing are coming on the market, or people would sell if somebody showed up with an offer. And so, yeah, I just go beyond what I think the average real estate agent typically does. And I try to communicate. I think communication is massive. Staying in touch with people, whether they're buyers and what's going on and what's coming up on the market, and sellers, especially now as the market has slowed down. You know, 5 years ago, you didn't have to worry about calling a listing and telling them what you did last week, because 3 days after you listed, it was under contract. You know, but
Crazy.
now the market's slower. I mean, in my market, our median day or average days on market is, 50, 52 days. So, I mean, some stuff's still selling in a few days, but things are sitting on the market, which means you got to have a system in place. I have a system in place, and my VA actually implements most of it. But that every single Monday we send a report that tells them, what's happened with their property, how many showings did they have, how many did we do an open house, how many of you, what
Right.
advertising did we do, what else that is comparable to that home came on the market, sold, got pulled off the market, you know, uh, so they can see where their house is. Because if their house is sitting there and hasn't had a single showing, but they can look around and they say, oh, well, there's 30 other houses that are comparable to mine, and only one of them sold in the last 2 weeks. That's different than 8 of them sold. Well, then why the hell didn't mine? I
Yeah,
mean,
right. Yes, exactly.
so I just think the more you can educate people to what's going on. I mean, I try to educate people before I work with them, and in fact, I won't work with them unless you sit down and do a strategy session, go through the process. I won't go out and show houses just because people just want to go look at houses. If you really look at houses, then we'll sit down and have a conversation. And because 90+% of people that want to go buy a house, I don't care if they bought one 3 years ago, don't have an accurate perception of what house shopping looks like today.
So, how does house shopping look like today compared to, well, you mentioned 5 years ago, or, how does that look? I mean, what has actually changed?
Well, I mean, a buyer is in a much better place right now, but you still have to be very aware that you're looking at, because some houses still do sell in 3 or 4 days, and the other stuff sitting on the market. But you've got to, it's a very different. Before, we were out running around showing 8 houses in a day. We have more inventory, but it's more, at least in my area, the inventory is very broad in that we don't in the
In each
I guess
category?
I get a fair number of first time home buyers, or our low end. Our low end is 500 grand. So it's all relative. I mean, at 400 grand, you're getting a mobile home on some land, or something that was built in 1950 and needs a roof. So it's all relative. But yeah, in that lower end is educating them on what's out there that they're not. There's a lot of stuff that's not financeable.
Like the mobile home on the land, that's a lot trickier.
Well, some of those are, but it really runs the gamut, yeah. And for sellers, there is houses are sitting longer. It's making sure the house, I mean, you've always wanted people to have their house looking perfect for show
Of
ready,
course,
but
right.
it's way more important now because there's way less buyers out there for each home. And those little things that you said, oh, they'll deal with it, are the things that make people not write the offer.
Oh,
The buyers today they're looking for turnkey. They're not the buyers of 10 years ago. There was plenty of buyers in the market that were looking for a deal, and I'll fix it up and I'll paint it and I'll do this. And I just don't see very many of those anymore, unless they're flippers, and then they're looking for, right,
or
at 100 grand less.
yeah, so exactly, right? So they can
Yeah.
build in some profit after their work they put into it naturally.
Yeah. And then working with buyers, I mean, once again, getting pre-qualified has always been a must, absolute. but looking at what their different options are with loans and then staying on top of it because as interest rates, I mean, currently they've been coming down, but over the last, a couple of years, they've come down and they've gone back up. And you get somebody qualified, you can't look at a qualification and get a pre-approval and 3 months later just assume that that's still good because if you got
Yeah.
approved right on the edge of your budget, and then people always tend to look at, well, but that's just a
Right. The
little bit
incremental
more,
part. Yeah.
and then the interest rates went up just a little bit, and yeah, that doesn't work.
You're out of that price point, right?
Yeah,
Or the market altogether. And hopefully people don't decide to go buy cars during that process too and they get the right
and
coaching.
absolutely, that's another reason why I always must sit down with them and go over the whole home buying process. Yeah, because that happens. I've never ever had that happen to me, but I have some friends who are lenders who told me some real horror stories, and
Yes.
so anybody watching, when you're buying a house, don't buy anything big before, during, or until the day after you close escrow. Do not buy furniture, do not buy a car, don't
No.
take 20 grand out of the bank to give to your friend. Don't do anything crazy financially. Leave it alone. Be
Yeah. Leave
boring.
Never be boring. There's your advice from Reed. Be boring during the process so you can make sure that you can actually get into the house, which is the most important part of the process. The rest of it, the furniture, you don't need the furniture unless you have the house, right? I mean, so, leave it alone.
Exactly. Exactly. And it would really be bummed to have a whole house full of new furniture and no place to put it.
That sounds terrible. So, Reed, let me ask you a little bit about technology and how you've been using technology in your real estate
Mhm.
business. How do you leverage technology in real estate?
Well, I'm using, in addition to have my virtual assistant go through my email, I use a program called Fiverr, or not Fiverr, Fixer that goes through and it actually does a lot of sorting of the email and prioritizing. And it will
Mhm.
even pre-write some of the responses. So that is tremendous because it puts everything into that same folder. So anything that requires my reply, it puts it in and it will pre-write the reply, and then I can go through and I know if I look in that folder, everything that Fixer's found or my VA has found that needs my attention is in there. So I don't need to worry about anything else. And I would say 80% of the time the reply that's written is pretty accurate, is right on. I may change the wording a little bit to make it sound a little more like me, but that's really tremendous. I use AI a lot for marketing, for target marketing, or looking at a particular piece of property and what's the demographic that's looking for that piece of property, where they are coming from. Because when we do target marketing with social media, where you can put it in front of people in a certain geographic area, you want to go after we are. Woodby Island is a lot of people have vacation homes here. So we get people coming out of Bellevue and out of Seattle, out of California, particularly San Diego. We also have a big naval air station. So we get people coming out of Florida and Texas that come here. So by using some AI to refine that down and narrow that down helps. And then what people are looking for on social media, what information people are looking for. AI is a fantastic tool for refining that.
So do you
And we're
have
using
Yeah, no, thank you for that. That's awesome. So have you found that, your AI at GPT or whatever you're using has been pretty accurate on knowing that target market that you're after and enabling you to reach them?
Yeah, yeah, it's a matter of I mean, you hear everybody talk about prompting. It's just a matter of prompting, getting it the right information. I don't think it's rocket science. I think the internet makes it sound like it's a bigger deal than it is. Like a bunch of YouTubers that want to sound important, but I don't know. On the other hand, I was always really good with Google that people would say, "How'd you find that?" I don't know. I just asked Google. I'm like,
See,
well, I don't get that answer.
that tells me right there because if you have even the right Google search, the right prompt, the way to ask the question, even communicate with people, knowing how to ask the right question gives you a completely different answer, right? So
Absolutely.
I would say you are pre-programmed yourself to know how to prompt. And once you started communicating with it, with the AI, you communicated well. So I think there's definitely a trick to it. I don't know if it's rocket science or magic, but if you don't have the right touch, you don't get the same results.
Yeah, yeah. And that's one I've stuck with ChatGPT. I use several other AIs. I use several for avatars, and I use 11 Labs for audio and a whole bunch of stuff. But for most things, for just the stuff where I want information, I've stuck with ChatGPT because As you train, the more you talk to it, the more it knows you. So you don't have to, that was the whole thing when AI was fairly new. It was the whole, you have to prompt it this and tell it what role it is
Right.
and all this stuff. It knows all of that because I've talked
Right.
to it so much. My wife's always coming in here. Who are you on the phone with? Oh, I'm just talking to chat.
Yes.
But
Yes.
but it's an amazing tool until it takes over the world and kills us all. But in the meantime, I think it's fantastic.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've heard that approach. I've heard that thinking and that little bit of fear from several people that I've talked to. To go, yeah, maybe something in the movies comes true. Well, we
Yeah.
may never see it in our lifetime, but who knows?
I think you'll see it in a couple of years. Well, I don't know about killing us all, but I think the world is going to change in ways it's just fascinating and terrifying all at once.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the
So,
the the power is there to do. It could go any direction, right? I mean, it, this is intelligence, and it's connected to everything. So as long as we have good firewalls and maybe good regulation worldwide, then it'll do more
yeah,
good than evil.
I don't see that happening. The powers that be don't want it.
Yeah. Definitely different standards out there. Interesting.
And then the other area I'm using AI for is within marketing also is actually building out my own avatars. So I am in the process with my virtualist with my VA Hannah of building out so that she can make videos of me doing this without me having to do anything except approve the script. And there's the technology's there. It's just doing getting it refined. But we're using HeyGen for that and 11 Labs for the voice. And one of my favorite sayings, I heard this at a real estate conference 3 years ago when AI was, just kind of coming, or everybody was becoming aware of AI. It's been around for a long time. But the whole thing was, AI will never be as crappy as it is today. And in the 5 months I've been using HeyGen, it went from, "Yeah, that's me, but it's kind of a robot thing," to pretty damn good. And 11 Labs, which is the premier one for creating voices, just yesterday I hopped on. I hadn't played with it in a few weeks, hopped on there, and they released their newest beta version, and now it actually pauses, it takes a breath, and
That's
before it
good.
kinda just talked through and you're like, "Okay, I wouldn't quite talk like that." But it
Right.
has my voice in it. But now it's like it's actually, and
It has
it's getting
the cadence to it, right? The correct cadence of the
yeah,
actual communication as opposed to just trying to talk.
right. Yeah. And that's, I think a year from now, we won't be able to tell
Yeah.
anymore that it's real or not. Henceforth, more important to be on video and not be perfect. The more we stutter and stammer and make mistakes makes us human because we're becoming fallible will become more popular because you
Yes.
won't be because AI. I mean, I already know. I watch YouTube videos, and my wife and I like to watch travel videos, and you flip on something, and it starts off, and you're like, huh, I wonder if that's it's just a voiceover over a bunch of B-roll, and then it's like they mispronounce something, and you're like, yep, never mind, it's damn AI. But it turns me off. I'll go watch something else. I want to watch
Right.
something with a human being.
Yeah.
So I think the more we do this, the more we talk to people, and we're just human.
Yeah. No,
Counts.
I agree. Although I do use the AI for the editing. In Riverside, it works really well. It does a good job. It'll take a lot of the ums out and some of the pauses, and it just makes it flow a little bit better. But you still sound like a per. It doesn't change how you sound. So I use all those perks because otherwise it takes a long time to really edit a video well. So I try to keep it real. It was just a conversation that we're having. I mean,
Yeah,
Reid, you're real, I'm real. And so I'm going to say a few more times than I want to hear. And I'll just hit that button, go. It'll take him out, uses smart technology, is what he calls it, of course, just to take out the right ones and not all of them. So you're still human, but it makes you more interesting. I think that's it.
absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. It is nice that it will do that. I mean, I was in Toastmasters for many years, and that's half the battle of being in Toastmasters is learning
Yes.
not to say ums and ahs.
Yes. Yeah. We're a short stint in Toastmasters, and it's crazy to listen to people and you're thinking of just making a check mark every time you hear an or some other pause. And I try not to listen to that piece of it. That's probably one of the reasons I use the button that says get rid of the pauses and the filler words,
Yep.
doesn't mean I don't use them. See, there we go. There was a pause because I couldn't just have silence, apparently. Reid, what advice would you give to someone? Actually, let's do this. What advice would you give to yourself getting back into real estate from the beginning?
Go all in on YouTube. Go all in on YouTube. do community video, evergreen video, not property video, do all in on educational video. Yep.
Nice. Excellent. Excellent. And then what advice would you give to someone starting a business right now? What advice would you give them so they don't make the same mistakes a lot of people make when starting a business?
Figure out who your target market is and what their pain point is, what it is they need from you, what it is you're selling them. Don't go in with, I have this great idea, I want to sell something. You need to know what somebody else's pain point is and how you're going to solve it. And then go talk to those people before you're worried about building your better widget, and find out what they would actually be interested in. And even if you have to give away a few, you're better off to get started, get rolling, get a few clients under your belt, and work through those growing pains to actually understand what people are really need. Because I think too many people get caught up in what they've read about something, or they're passionate about something. I mean, I followed my pizza passion, and it was not a financially well rewarded passion. It was fantastic. It was fun. My whole family worked in the business. My kids worked in the business.
Wow.
My grandson didn't work in the business. He was 2, but he would come to the farmer's market and hand me firewood. And
Nice.
so it's quite important. It's a very important part of our lives. But before starting a business, you really, really need to know that I'm not a big believer in that whole thing about following your passion anymore. Follow your passion to the degree that it is a money-making venture that is a good return on your investment. Because I'm all about ROI. We only have so many hours in the day. Maybe it's because I've had a few more birthdays, so I think about it more. But you only have so many hours in the day, and what are you going to do with those hours, and what are you getting from it? I got into real estate because my previous career was fairly physical, and I was like, okay, I was 52 at the time. I closed my restaurant, and I was like, okay, well, I mean, I can still go do that job, but for how long? And I was like, no, real estate. Number one, I enjoy talking. I love talking to people. I'm a people person. I'm
Yeah.
not terribly shy. But it was like, but it's something I can do, and I can get a good return on my investment. Because your investment is, as you get older, your body can only do so many things. So having a job where you have to do physical work all day, I think there's this huge, I don't know, maybe it's just me or maybe everybody else thinks about it, but I just always think, there's people about jobs you do that you do physical labor and you bust your ass and you make minimum wage. And then there's jobs where you sell something and you maybe make decent money, but you still got to do that. Or you can get into something where you're selling something, ultimately like selling an online course or something where you sell it one time. You don't have to keep doing it. That's what internet sales. I mean, real estate, you still have to go out and do the work, but
Right.
the marketing is done online. And if you do it right, it becomes perpetual. You build out that your reputation out there. But there are other businesses you can get into where you build that. You sell it once and you get paid again. My stepfather was an insurance agent. So he would sell that policy once, and he made a bigger check that time. But every year they renewed it, they sent money.
Yep.
And by the end of his career, his business was in California. He moved up here. And for 10 years, he asked me, should I retire? And I'm like, you do is what people call retirement. He put in about 5 hours a
Right.
month on his business. He had an office running everything.
Right. Good to have
But
systems. Right.
that's the ultimate leverage. You're leveraging other people. That's what I love about virtual assistants is they leverage my time. I'm not work, I'm
Right.
not I'm here doing a podcast with you, and they are working and they are calling my clients and they are sending emails and working on my videos for next week. So yeah, I think finding leverage, I mean, some people want to follow their passion and their passion is, mowing lawns, and that's awesome. But I'm all about return on investment. So
Yes, absolutely. I think with that, we're going to wrap up here. Reid, this has been a great conversation. For anyone listening who wants to connect with you, learn about the market, or follow your content, where do they find you?
well, I have I have 2 different businesses. So I have real estate and a virtual assistant. So you can find me on most social media at Time Hack VA on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Time Hack VA. And then my real estate business is Whidbey, the island I lived on. It's WHIDBEY, Whidbey Reid. I'm Whidbey Reid everywhere. So yeah, I'd be happy to have a conversation with anybody about any of those subjects.
Excellent. And for those of you watching, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you follow Technologies Now, the Business Edge on YouTube and LinkedIn. And Reid, thanks again for joining us. And thanks everyone for
Absolutely.
listening.
Thanks for having me, David. It's awesome.